everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Patty from ultraslowrunner.com. It's been a while since my last video, so it's good to see you all again, and we're excited for another video. Today I have my friend Kyler here, and he's been in another video, a previous video. We talked about healing through fitness, and so today we're going to kind of extend that topic a little bit. It's going to get a little bit deeper. Today we're going to be talking about depression and what that means for both of us, and kind of the things that help us through our depressions, the tools we use, and things like that. And I do want to say we might touch on suicidal thinking today, and what it's like to be in a really dark place in depression. And so right now, if that's something you might find triggering for you, and something that, I mean, we're hoping for it to be helpful and help people through healing through depression. But if you're not in that space right now, you may want to kind of save this video for a later time when you're feeling a little bit better and maybe better able to handle what you're going through right now. So just as a little bit of a warning, and even throughout the video, if you're watching it and you find that it might be triggering, then again, just stop the video and maybe catch it up a little bit later. So yeah, so today we're going to talk about each of our experience with depression, and then we'll kind of lead the video from there. So I'll start with Kyler, if you want to kind of talk about your experience with depression, where it maybe comes from, and things like that.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of a lifelong experience, and I feel like it's related a lot to the home that I grew up in, and my dad was pretty controlling, and it was a very strict religious home, and so a lot of anger, and so there was a lot of, for me, self-monitoring, micromanaging me, and I'm the oldest in my family, so I was micromanaging my younger brothers as well, to try to keep the peace, and not let anyone get too boisterous or too out of control, so that my dad wouldn't get angry. And so a lot of this is hindsight, because I didn't know at the time that I was experiencing, specific health issues because of it, and elevated stress levels and all of that. But a lot of the ideology within the strict religious circles I was in contributed to it. So there was a lot of focus on purity and modesty, and trying to prevent lust and like all that stuff, and the kind of the big message that I got from all that was that I was a monster. And I just felt horrible for all these women, and I saw the way my dad treated my mom, and so I felt bad for being a man in that way. It never made me want to not be a man, but I just felt like maybe I shouldn't be alive. And maybe it would be better for the world to have one less monster in it. And so a lot of the suicidal depression or suicidal ideology was around that. But in addition to that, it was also like the perfection that I felt like my dad was looking for. And I never did get his approval. Like I was always this close, but always failing, and always doing more and more and more to try to be who he wanted me to be, and I just never could. And so it was that was depressing in a general sense, but then specifically I felt like I was trying to earn my right to be here and to exist, and I was always failing the test to prove that I should be here. And so there were, certain times it would just kind of all hit me like I am never going to get there. I am never going to be good enough.
Right.
And I've noticed that since then I've done a lot of healing since I got away from the family in my early 20s. But even now and even recently, like when I'm doing too much and I'm pushing too hard and I'm, sometimes I'm just not even paying attention to what's happening in my schedule. But all of a sudden I kind of get in that space of I need to be all these things for all these people, and I'm not even realizing that I'm moving into that extreme edge and completely wearing myself out and kind of destroying my health again.
Right.
Until it's almost too late and there's like no way out. Like I have to like cancel something and sleep all day to recover.
Right.
And that's when I can get in a really, really dark place of depression and just feeling super hopeless and like I'm never going to measure up, never going to be good enough. And I really have a hard time getting out of the darkness or away from those accusing voices in my head. So, so that's kind of what it tends to look like for me. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah. So what about you?
Well, my childhood was pretty traumatic. A lot of physical and sexual abuse and lots of drug and alcohol abuse with other family members and things like that. And what you had kind of described earlier was kind of like hypervigilance.
Yeah.
And I felt, I always was hypervigilant of the things I said, the things I did, and how I interacted with others. And similar to you, I felt like I needed to be good enough. And if I was good enough, then it would make all the bad stuff go away.
Yeah, right.
And and unfortunately, I just never was. I mean, I never felt like I was because bad stuff kept happening, not just to me, but to my siblings and things like that. And that's carried throughout my whole life. And so off and on, I've experienced depression, and usually with my depression always comes suicidal ideation. I have attempted suicide in the past a number of times, and so recently, recently it's been pretty rough.
Sure.
But I do have kind of a handful of tools I try to implement when I'm feeling this way, and things that I try to do to keep from going too far over the edge.
Yeah.
Because I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And, I still have to keep reminding myself that, I don't need to self-destruct. I'm not here to prove myself to anybody.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of being good enough. Like, I should deserve to be here. And I don't know, some of you guys watching may experience, when you're in a depression, you feel like you're worthless. I definitely have those feelings. And when you feel worthless and hopeless, that combination is just lethal. And I think when people do end up taking their lives, that's probably about what they were feeling, that their life wasn't worth it, and they weren't worth love and compassion from others. And it's amazing how lonely you feel in that space.
Isolated.
Even though you could be, isolated is a good word. You could be surrounded by people and friends and people who love you, maybe even be in therapy, but it's still such a lonely place. And that's one reason I wanted to do this video, was to really say that, none of us really are alone. I mean, there are pathways out.
So over the years, what have you done to address it, and what tools have helped?
Well, as you may have guessed, running.
Yeah.
Running has just always been incredibly healing for me. It's a way for me to go out on the roads or on the trails in the mountains, and sure, it's an escape, but also it's an opportunity for me to feel power in times where I feel powerless.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of strength, and and then I also feel like, in a way, running is such a best friend to me.
Yeah.
And running has empathy and compassion for me, except up really steep hills.
Yeah.
Then it's not so nice to me. But it's just always there. I can always count on running. And so it's a source of peace for me. And it makes sense to me in a time where I may be feeling so confused.
Sure.
And running just makes me feel less alone.
Yeah.
So running is probably my thing. So
Yeah, and
what
it kind of
about
connects you. It connects you to your body again and to your breath. And so, both of those are very calming things. And
Right.
If you haven't read the book, "The Body Keeps the Score," that's a really good one to look at. The author is the foremost expert on PTSD, and a lot of really powerful stuff in there. But he talks about yoga and other exercise modalities as a great way to help heal the body, because the body does keep the score. It is the one being punished when we're experiencing chaos. It kind of takes the brunt of all of what we're experiencing. That's why I grew up with hypothyroid and hypoadrenia and inability to build muscle and get stronger and all that stuff. But just getting out of your head and back into your body through some kind of movement is really good. So when you're running, you're keeping a steady pace and you feel that rhythm and you're feeling your body and you're breathing deeply and so it's even if it didn't do anything else, which it does, but just that increase of circulation helps with elevated cortisol levels and stress levels in the body. So at least you're doing something therapeutic and healthy while you're experiencing all that stress.
Right.
But it does so much more than that. But even if it was just that, it would be beneficial.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've done similar things, and for me, it took more of a strength training because of the stress and the way it manifests in my body with the hypothyroid and hypoadrenia. I actually would lose muscle if I did a lot of cardio. And I also didn't feel well if I did a lot of cardio. So for me, it was more strength training and sprinting and quicker sports like soccer and pickleball. Because even though you're active for a long period of time, it's more spurts. Where you push it and then you walk, or you stand or whatever, and you push it and then you stop. And so same thing with lifting. You lift and then you rest, and you lift and then you rest. That was better for my body. But it's also it's a very meditative time, and I just kind of relish the time of like just being in my body and pushing my body and then letting it rest and then being in tune with it that whole time. So I know how far I can push it, and then when I need to rest, and then when I'm ready again to push it, and all those things. So that's very therapeutic, and I felt like I could tell physically and mentally and emotionally. It was kind of like a rock climbing, where you grab a hold in one spot, then you grab another spot, then you move your feet, then you're climbing up. So as I would get a little bit stronger physically, I would notice myself taking more of my power back mentally, emotionally in my life. And I was owning my life and myself again. And then kind of vice versa, like as I was owning myself a little bit more in life, then I was like seeing progress physically and getting stronger. And so that was exciting to observe. But then I've also seen a wide variety of counselors and therapists that have all been helpful in various ways. And same thing with my health. I was like always going to different professionals to see if they had a corner of knowledge that maybe the other ones didn't.
Right.
And so I've seen a wide variety of counselors for my personal healing journey as well, and have stuck with certain ones
Yeah.
for longer just because I've been seeing some amazing things happen with them. So I've got right now a main mentor that I've been working with for a couple years that has some really powerful stuff. She's actually on YouTube as well. Amanda Flaker. You can find her on YouTube and by
I
that
can
website
link
name.
her
Yeah.
in the video.
Yeah.
I'll link her and then the book that you mentioned.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I don't know if you experienced this too, and I've just realized this recently, or at least I don't remember thinking about this in earlier times of depression, but I also think it's oftentimes I'm the most genuine when I'm depressed.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it feels like the most authentic I am. I don't know.
Is it because you've given up trying to be perfect?
Well, it could very well be. I mean, I don't know if it's a good or a good or a bad thing.
Right.
But it feels so raw and real, and
Yeah.
like these are like the memories that come back when I'm depressed, or things I don't normally think about, but they all, like these little monsters, start creeping in, and
Wow, yeah.
but I just feel very real. And I feel like my feelings are authentic, whether they're really true or not. Like
You're not managing them. You're just letting them be.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really odd, I guess, to be, if there's any positive out of depression, it's that I feel very real, and
yeah, that's good.
you know, and it's not something I can hide very well. I'm definitely more open about it than I have been in the past, and just been more transparent. And I know, you know, we both are kind of that way. And there's some real value in being transparent, not just for ourselves, but for other people. Running is definitely my source of healing. It doesn't necessarily make the depression better, but
it's manageable.
It gets me through. It keeps me focused on something, and that's why I've already registered for some races. I mean, despite feeling like I don't know if I'm going to make it till tomorrow.
Sure.
I mean, even when we were planning this video ahead of time, I'm thinking, oh, I've just got to just hang in there. You can make it. You can do this. This is important work.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I think it's important to even focus on, even if you don't feel like it, even if it's just the darkest day. I think it's still important to think about the things you want to do in your life. And try to have some clarity with that. I know it's hard. I mean, I'm here right now saying it's hard. It really is. But you kind of go through the motions, and then I think as you start feeling better, it feels less of a chore and just a natural thing to do. So I know you and I were going to talk about hope and the importance of hope in coming out of a depression. So
Well, that was one thing that stood out to me when I was studying psychology, and I forget now. I meant to look that up. Which branch of psychology was the one that kind of focused on hope? But the idea was that if the therapist's primary responsibility is to restore hope, not necessarily to fix it, not to make it all better or go away, or to have like a full plan laid out, but just inspire some hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And got a visitor. Yeah, but and that really struck me when I was reading that, because I've thought back through, like, the toughest moments were when I was in that space of not feeling hope, and like it's not going to get better,
Right.
and
Right.
like I'm not good enough, and I'll never be good enough, and that's the end of the story.
Right,
That's it.
right. Yeah.
There's no other ending.
Right. Yeah.
But when you can talk to someone, or even just kind of think through things yourself, if you're able to, and kind of change your perspective, because the idea, the paradigm that you're in when you're thinking, I'm not going to be good enough, and so this is how the story ends.
Right.
That's a what you could call a lack mindset, where there's not enough and you're not enough, or I know there's different ways of labeling it, but there are, like, in the lack mindset, there's three different characters. There's the victim, there's the aggressor, and the savior,
Yeah.
or hero. And it's like, in that story, you can only be one of those three characters.
Right. Yeah.
And yet you could step out of that story and realize, wow, we are all powerful people.
Right.
We can all be our own hero. We can all, change the paradigm. I don't have to be stuck in one of these three roles.
Right.
I can be in a dark place, and I can raise myself out of it. Or like, all of the universe and all of nature is rooting for me to rise
Right.
from this situation.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to someone else, if they're the victim, I don't have to be the savior. I can remind them how powerful they are,
Right. Right.
and see them rise. And so we can step out of that limited story
Right.
and step into a new story. And that, just thinking in a new story, may be the thing that restores hope.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, it's like,
Yeah.
even like, every day the sun comes back up.
Right.
No matter how dark the night,
Yeah.
and even just
Right.
observing that
Right.
can bring hope. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how small the hope is. If there's a little bit of hope, there's
Right.
hope.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely, throughout my life, found sometimes the smallest things inspire hope in me, whether it's coming from myself or another person. I mean, I could devote a whole video to stories of
Yeah.
of where I found hope to continue living, but yeah, it's so important, and sometimes that's what it all boils down to. It might be all you have left is this sliver of hope that's going to shine and be, the sunlight, and,
Yeah.
and not to sound too cheesy, but the
Yeah.
sunlight in your
Yeah.
darkness.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, hope is definitely just amazing. It's powerful and just important in,
Yeah.
in healing.
Yeah.
So, and I invite all of you viewers to, in the comments below, tell us what inspires hope in you and what helps get you through the dark times. I know Kyler and I are not alone here.
Yeah.
And maybe tell us what you do, whether you do yoga or, and I do want to say, you actually, it's another video about medications and things like that, but maybe not overlook the possibility that you may need
Yeah,
something.
right.
You might not need it your whole life.
Right.
I definitely still take medications,
Mm-hmm.
and it can actually help, especially if you're at the point where you are
Yeah.
planning suicide and having suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
You may actually need something
Yeah.
like that because your brain chemistry
Mm-hmm.
is not functioning well.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
don't be ashamed to seek that out. If that, I
Right.
mean, there's for some reason this huge stigma around mental illness and
Yeah.
taking medications, and that it's some sort of sign of weakness or anything
Right.
like that. And it's absolutely not.
No.
It can save your life. I
Yeah.
mean, it's that serious
Yeah.
that you may need to look into that. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Something else that I'm doing is I kind of know my routine and what my needs are, like how much sleep I need and how much alone time I need, and um, uh, when I need my meals. And part of that came from the ill health I experienced growing up, and all the stuff I had to overcome to get healthy and strong. And so,
Right.
like, I really know my body well and know my routine.
right.
And so I'm always meal prepping every week, and I know when I'm going to get my workouts in,
Right.
and I know I need to rest a certain amount in order to really have all the energy I want for the sports that I play and the workouts that I have. And so I know when I need to slow down too.
Right.
And but then, like this last week, sometimes things can pile up and just kind of catch me by surprise. And I thought I was keeping my routine, and then I'm like, I'm not feeling well, and I think I need to rest. But
Right.
some people want me to get together with them, and then I end up pushing myself too much, and it just like it goes too far. And so
Yeah.
I'm learning. The other piece of that is that I'm learning to make myself a priority and to really listen to myself more than I even have been. Because I've been good at listening to my body and like my limits physically in my workouts, or when I need to eat again and that sort of thing, but not when I just need to say no to
Yeah.
getting together with people or playing a sport on a certain day, and just like I need to rest.
Right. Right.
Because it's like, wait a minute, like this is one of my commitments. I love this sport. I want to play. They need another player.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm not listening to what I need, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm saying yes to myself because I do want to play.
Right. Right.
But sometimes I have to really discern, and it's okay for me to make myself a priority. And people are going to figure out how to survive
Yeah.
if I can't show up.
Right.
And so it's okay
Yeah.
to make myself my own priority. And I'm still learning that, because all growing up with my dad and then other people, my survival was guaranteed if I kept everybody happy.
Right.
And my body suffered for it
Right.
all growing up. And so sometimes I still have to remind myself, oh, wait, I got to
Yeah.
really tune in, and I can
Right.
totally say no. And
Yeah.
even if I part of me wants to, I have to balance and listen
Yeah.
and adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an important lesson to learn is the value of being able to say no. And again, going back to childhood, it's okay. We grew up without boundaries and not being able to kind of speak up for ourselves. And, but you get to a point where you realize, the world's not going to end if I
Yeah.
don't show up at this
Yeah,
party
right.
or
They're still
or
going to like you.
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
They're still going to be friends with you.
Right, exactly. So,
Yeah.
we have a ton to talk about on this topic.
Yeah.
And didn't want to make the video too long.
Yeah.
So we were actually interested in maybe having a series on this topic.
Yeah.
So let us know in the
Yeah.
comments below if you would like something like that. Maybe a series on depression or mental health in general, or emotional health. But I do want to ask one final question. So we're talking about any advice we may give to somebody if they really are in a dark place right now, and what
Yeah.
would you say to that person if maybe they were at the point where they were feeling hopeless and maybe a danger to themselves of harming themselves and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah. So a couple things would be when you're in that spot, you feel like you don't measure up. You're failing, and you're not worth keeping around. You're not of any value to anyone else. And so it can be the hardest thing in the world to open up to someone about that, because you feel like you're admitting failure and you're just proving your point of what you're believing in that moment. But I know there's a little tiny part of you that also knows that that's not true, and that people do care. And if there's anyone that you feel safe with, or that you would feel would maybe have experienced some of this before, and would be able to receive what you're saying, do all that you possibly can to reach out to them and open up to them. Another thing in the moment is just like keep breathing, keep taking big breaths. I know that like my breathing kind of just stops when I'm really having a hard time, and I'm super shallow, very minimal. So keep taking big breaths, and do something to kind of get back in your body. Move around, squat a little bit, do some push-ups against the counter, move your arms around, but kind of let yourself know that you're still here, you're still present in your body, you're still in the physical plane. So yeah, those are a couple things that kind of in that dark moment I would recommend. How about you?
Yeah.
Any additions?
Well, I would agree with all of that. And then also, for the first time in my life, I actually called a hotline.
Yeah.
It was a suicide hotline, and I could make another video on that, what that experience was like. But I'll link in the comments below the hotline that I called, and maybe a couple others. But I will say that it was it was incredibly beneficial, and I think it would really help people who maybe just don't have anybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they just
Yeah,
don't
if you
have
can't think of anybody
resources.
that
Yeah.
you really trust, that that's
Yeah,
a great
yeah.
option. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a great experience for me, and I think I'm here today, probably because of partly because of that conversation I had with that woman. So
Awesome.
okay, well, we're gonna wrap it up today. But again, if you'd like to see this as a series, we would
Yeah.
love to do that, because there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're gonna say goodbye for now, and we'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.
See ya.